The knock landed exactly the way I had practiced it. 3 measured strikes on the oak. Not loud. Not angry. The kind of knock a man uses when he wants the person on the other side of the door to understand that he has not come to beg. It was 7:14 in the morning. November 9th, Suburban Street in Lake Forest, just north of Chicago, the kind of street where the trees are old enough to belong to the houses they shade. The house in front of me was one I had bought. Paid cash. The brick, the slate roof, the heated driveway, the powder room on the main floor with the Italian tile Myra had picked out herself on a trip to Milan 5 years ago. I knew every square foot of it because I had walked it with the contractor 100 times before we moved in. I knew where the basement flooded in spring. I knew the way the third bedroom caught the morning light. I knew the exact spot in the kitchen where my daughter Hyraa stood on a step stool each Saturday morning to help me make pancakes. The stool was gone now. So was the welcome mat I had ordered from a family business in Vermont. So were a number of other things I would discover in time. My name is Ryan Curry. I am 42 years old. I run a real estate development and private investment firm called Northbridge Holdings, headquartered on the 32nd floor of 330 North Wabash in downtown Chicago. 11 years ago I was one of 2 employees working out of a subleased office in Wicker Park with a borrowed desk and a single fax machine. Today I run a portfolio of mixed-use buildings across 4 Midwestern cities and a small, obsessively managed private equity book that I review personally every Sunday afternoon. I have sat in rooms with men 3 times my age who tried to outbluff me on valuations, and I have never once lost my composure at the table. I tell you that not to brag. I tell you that because the composure I built in boardrooms is the only reason I was still standing upright on that front porch on the morning of November 9th with my daughter somewhere inside the house being told that I was never, under any circumstances, coming back. The story begins about 2 weeks before that knock. Earlier. Much earlier. The way all of these stories begin, with a version of someone that the other person is still in love with long after that version has stopped existing. I met Myra Qureshi in 2014 at a charity auction the Shed Aquarium was hosting for Lake Michigan Conservation. I was 29, she was 25. She had just left a brand consulting job in New York and moved back to Chicago to be closer to her parents. She was working as a junior strategist at a small marketing firm in the Loop. I was running a portfolio that I had built out of a single successful flip in Logan Square. We were introduced by a mutual friend whose name I have by now mostly forgotten, the kind of forgettable person who, by accident, alters the entire direction of 2 lives. Myra was wearing a moss green dress. She had a glass of red wine she mostly wasn't drinking, and the specific brand of sharp intelligence that you can hear in someone's voice before you can see it in their face. We talked for 45 minutes about city planning, about the way Chicago's neighborhoods were being rezoned, about the way that brand consultants usually knew nothing about the cities whose businesses they were being paid to reposition. She laughed at that. She had the kind of laugh that decided whether you kept talking to her or quietly excused yourself. I kept talking. We dated for 14 months. I did not pressure the timeline. She was deliberate in the way serious people are deliberate. She wanted to know if I was going to stay in Chicago. She wanted to know how I felt about children. She wanted to know if I read the kinds of books she liked to leave on someone's coffee table. I had nothing to hide. I had nothing to perform. I was 29 years old, I had a notebook full of deal memos and a small studio apartment in River North that smelled faintly of cedar from a candle a friend had given me, and I had absolutely no idea what kind of man I was going to become. I just knew that when Myra was in the room felt organized in a way it didn't feel without her. I proposed on a Tuesday in May on a bench at the lakefront near North Avenue Beach. She said yes by rolling her eyes and laughing and then saying yes again, slower, like she was signing a contract she had already read twice. We were married in September 2015 in a ceremony at the Arts Club of Chicago that my parents flew in from Amman to attend. My father, who is now 74 and who has never willingly entered a financial conversation in his life, walked me down the aisle wearing the same suit he had worn to my uncle's wedding in 1989. He told me afterward, in the bathroom of the reception hall where I went to splash water on my face before the toasts, marry a woman who can run a meeting. Then let her. It was the best advice he has ever given me, and I did not understand how good it was until 11 years later when I was standing on a porch in Lake Forest, in the cold, knocking 3 times on a door I paid for. Hyraa came along in August 2018. Myra and I had been trying for 2 years. There had been a miscarriage in 2017 that Myra handled the way she handled every setback, with quiet, methodical reconstruction. She went to therapy. She read a mountain of books. She exercised with renewed discipline. And then one cold morning in January she walked out of the bathroom holding a pregnancy test and handed it to me without a word. Hyraa Noor Khoury was born at Prentice Women's Hospital on a Tuesday afternoon in August. She was 6 pounds, 4 ounces. She had my cheekbones and Myra's eyebrows. The nurse said she had the focused expression of an old soul. I believed her. In the first years of Hyraa's life, we built the kind of marriage that looks like a stock photograph from the outside and feels, from the inside, like a continuous low-grade negotiation. We were both ambitious. We were both used to winning arguments. Myra had, by the time Hyraa was 2, built her own boutique brand strategy firm out of an office above a bookstore in Lincoln Park. I had built Northbridge out of the second bedroom of the apartment we were renting in Old Town, then moved it to a real office on Wabash, then bought the 32nd floor. We had help. We had 2 nannies in rotation. We had a cleaning service that came in twice a week. We had a marriage counselor we saw every 6 weeks because Myra believed that couples who didn't talk to a professional once in a while were just guessing. I was proud of Myra in ways I had trouble articulating. I paid off her student loans from Columbia. I bought her the office equipment she needed without being asked. When she told me she wanted to take Hyraa to London for 2 weeks to visit a brand incubator she had been admitted to, I said go. When she told me she wanted to bring her younger brother Omar into the business as a junior partner, I said invite him in. I trusted her. Genuinely trusted her. Not in the naive way that men describe trust in the soft focus stories you see in greeting cards. I trusted her the way I trust an operating partner I have personally vetted. I trusted her because I had watched her, over 10 years, make decisions in difficult moments that had consistently been the right decisions. And that is the thing about being married to someone you trust completely. You stop asking questions. You stop pulling on threads. You stop doing the small jealous inspections that other people do because doing them would imply that you don't trust the person you have decided to trust. You get comfortable in the certainty that you have built a house with someone who will not, under any circumstances, burn it down. Myra started a foundation in 2022 focused on women entrepreneurs in the Midwest. She called it Noor, after our daughter. The foundation gave small grants and mentorship pairings to first-time founders who wouldn't otherwise have access to the kind of network Myra and I had. I gave the foundation its initial funding. $200,000 of quiet money that I wired from my personal account without telling anyone except my accountant. I attended 2 of the galas every year. I let Myra take the photos. I let her take the credit. I let her put her name on the foundation's letterhead because her name was the one that mattered to the people we were trying to reach. I never once looked at the foundation's donor list. I never once asked her to walk me through an expense report. I never once considered the possibility that the man sitting next to her at the 3rd annual Noor Gala in October might be something other than a generous patron with a soft handshake and an opinion about typography. His name was Idris Rafiq. He was 34. He ran a venture-backed media fund out of a co-working space in Fulton Market. He was tall in a way that made shorter men around him self-conscious. He had the kind of face that photographs well, which for a certain kind of woman was, I have come to understand, a problem she did not want me to understand. Myra had met him, by her own retelling, 12 months earlier at a panel discussion her foundation had hosted on the future of Midwest-based venture capital. He had approached her afterward, exchanged cards, started showing up at her office events. I had shaken his hand twice. I had introduced myself politely. I had not registered him as anything more than the kind of person who drifts in and out of your wife's professional orbit if your wife runs a non-profit. That was my mistake. Not the size of it. The fact that I made it at all. The drift had been happening for about a year and a half when I left for Boston on October 27th. I had a portfolio company there, an industrial laundry operation in Quincy I had acquired 6 months earlier and was in the middle of restructuring. The board needed me physically present for 3 days of meetings with the floor managers, the lender, and the operations lead we had just promoted from inside the business. I had been to Quincy twice already. The third visit was the one where we locked in the new pricing model and signed the amendments. Myra knew the trip was coming. It had been on the shared calendar for 2 months. I told her I would be back Friday evening, November 7th, and that I planned to take Hyraa to the Shed Aquarium on Saturday because Hyraa had been talking about the beluga whales for 3 weeks and I had promised her a trip as soon as I got back. I flew out Monday morning on a 6:30 from O'Hare. Myra kissed me at the security line. Hyraa, who was 6, clutched my leg and asked me to bring her back a stuffed lobster. I told her I would bring her back 2 stuffed lobsters. She held up 2 fingers and said 2 in a tone that suggested she was double-checking my arithmetic. I am the father of a very serious child. I was proud of her then. I am still proud of her now, on a porch, in the cold, knocking 3 times. The Boston trip went the way Boston trips go. I had meetings. I had late dinners with the operations lead at a small Italian place in the North End where the waiters knew his name. I had early mornings with the lender at a coffee shop in Post Office Square that smelled like roasted beans and old wood. I called Myra twice a day. I called Hyraa once a day, before bed, and let her tell me what she had eaten for dinner, what her stuffed unicorn had said that day, what her teacher had written on the small whiteboard she kept at her desk. On Thursday night, 2 days before my scheduled return, Myra's voice on the phone had a thinness I did not register as anything I should pay attention to. She was busy, she said. The foundation's annual report was due. Omar was in town and staying at the house. Hyraa had a school event on Friday morning. She told me she loved me. She told me to bring her back something from Newbury Street if I had time. I told her I would. I noticed nothing. I should have noticed everything. The thinness in her voice. The fact that she did not ask a single follow-up question about the deal I was working on. The fact that she had, in the space of a single phone call, told me 3 things about other people in the house and not 1 thing about herself. I noticed nothing because I was 42 years old and my marriage was built on a foundation I had constructed with my own hands and the assumption that the foundation was solid. I was wrong. Foundations can be hollow. They can be built on sand by someone who has decided, quietly, that the sand is more interesting than whatever the foundation is supposed to hold up. I touched down at O'Hare Friday evening at 5:42 p.m. My driver, Mateen, picked me up at the arrivals curb in the black Escalade I keep on retainer. We drove north to Lake Forest. I had 2 stuffed lobsters in my carry-on. I had a copy of the Phantom Tollbooth from a children's bookstore in Cambridge because I had remembered, on the flight, that Hyraa's teacher had mentioned it was her favorite book and I thought she might like to have her own copy. I was not bringing Idris Rafiq into my awareness because Idris Rafiq was, in the version of my life I had been confident was the real one, an irrelevant footnote. I walked up to the front door of the house at 6:11 p.m. The door was locked. The lock code I had known for 5 years did not work. I tried it twice. I tried it a 3rd time. I called Myra. The phone went to voicemail after 2 rings. I tried again. Voicemail. I texted. The text sat unread for 9 minutes. I called our landline, the one we keep in the kitchen for Hyraa to use. It rang 6 times before the voicemail picked up. Hyraa's voice was on the outgoing message, the one I had helped her record 3 months earlier, and listening to it while standing outside the house I had bought was the first time in the entire trip that I felt something cold settle in my stomach like a piece of iron. I stood on the porch for another 12 minutes. I did not call anyone. I did not leave. I rang the doorbell twice. Nothing. I walked around to the back of the house. The kitchen door, the one that opens onto the deck and the yard where Hyraa plays in the summer, was also locked. The code I had been using since we moved in did not work. The motion light above the back porch had been disabled. I looked up at Hyraa's bedroom window. The curtains were drawn. There was a small soft glow behind them, the kind of glow that comes from a night light we had installed when Hyraa first moved into a big girl bed. She was in there. My daughter was in there. And the door was locked. I drove back to the city. I did not go to our downtown apartment because we had sublet it 8 months earlier when we consolidated into the Lake Forest house. I did not go to my office because my office closes at 6 and I had told Diane, my chief of staff, that I would not be back in until Monday. I drove to the Waldorf Astoria on East Walton Place where I have, for 15 years, kept a small account open for the nights I work late downtown and am too tired to drive back to the suburbs. The doorman, a man named Ed whom I have known since 2012, greeted me by name. I told him my wife had changed the locks on the house and that I needed a suite for an unspecified number of nights. He did not ask questions. The hospitality industry does not ask questions. It hands you a key and a glass of water and lets you go upstairs to whatever it is you're trying to outrun. I sat in the suite on the 17th floor. I did not unpack. I did not change clothes. I did not drink anything. I put the 2 stuffed lobsters on the desk next to the phantom tollbooth and I opened my laptop and I did the thing I have done at 11:30 p.m. on a Friday maybe 200 times in my life when something in my professional world has broken. I started writing. I wrote down the timeline. I wrote down the places. I wrote down the names. I wrote down the dollar amounts. Myra had received, between 2018 and the present, in direct and indirect financial support from our marriage, somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.4 million. Tuition and living expenses during her master's at Columbia. The seed capital for her agency in 2016. The buyout of her business partner in 2019. The down payment on the Lake Forest house. The down payment on the second vehicle, a black Range Rover she had wanted because Hyraa could climb into it more easily than my sedan. 6 nannies, paid through a corporate entity I had set up in 2019 so Myra's taxes were cleaner. The $200,000 in foundation seed money. The annual gala budgets. The travel for the London incubator and the brand conferences she had attended as a featured speaker. I was not building a list out of resentment. I was building a list because lists are what you build when you need to remember the shape of something in particular, the way an architect sits down and draws the building before he starts the demolition. I wrote down the names of the people in my life I could call at midnight on a Friday and who would pick up without making me explain anything first. My brother Kareem, who runs our family's commercial construction business in Milwaukee and who is the calmest person in any room he enters. Diane Portman, my chief of staff, who has been with me for 11 years and who, when I told her at 11:48 p.m. that something had happened at home, said only, "Do you want me to come up?" I told her not yet. I told her I had a meeting with her at 9 a.m. on Monday at the office and that I would tell her everything then. She said, "Understood. Sleep if you can." Then she said, "I'm sorry." 2 words that, in Diane's clipped professional tone, carried the weight of a much larger paragraph. My father. The man who taught me that the most important move in any game is the move you make after you have already lost a piece. My mother, who would cry on the phone and make everything worse and who, for that reason, I would not call until I knew exactly what I was going to say. My sister-in-law Hala, who had married Kareem in 2009 and who understood marriage in the granular, fluctuating way that only someone who had been in one for 15 years can understand it. My attorney. The man I had on retainer since 2017. His name was Gregory Lasker. He was 71. He had represented me in 3 prior disputes, none of which involved my personal life, all of which he had resolved with the surgical patience of a man who understood that the loudest move is rarely the right one. I sat in the suite until 2:15 a.m. I did not cry. I did not call Myra back. I did not look at her social media. I did not drive back to the house. I unpacked my suitcase, took a shower, put the stuffed lobsters on the dresser next to my wallet and my watch, and lay down on the bed in the dark looking out the window at the lake, which was just visible to the east as a darker black against a blacker sky. The phantom tollbooth I had bought my daughter sat on the desk. I had bought it because her teacher said she liked it. I had carried it across 2 airports and a 5-hour flight. It was still in the bag. I had not given it to her. I had not been allowed to give it to her. I would not see her in the morning. I would not see her that weekend. I would not see her for the next 10 days, and during those 10 days my wife would tell her, in the calm, patient voice of a mother who was trying to prepare a child for a difficult truth, that her papa was not coming back. But I am getting ahead of myself. Because what happened between Friday at 6:11 p.m. and that conversation with Hyraa is the part of the story I want to walk you through carefully, the way a doctor walks a patient through an X-ray. There are things to point at. There are things to ask questions about. There are things that, when you look at them in the right order, tell you the whole story without anyone having to say it out loud. The first thing I did on Saturday morning was go for a run. I run most mornings. I ran 3 miles along the lakefront in running clothes that I keep in a locker at the Waldorf for exactly these kinds of mornings. I ran past the yacht harbor and the bike rentals and the dog walkers who were already out with their coats zipped up against the November wind. I ran because running is the only thing I have found that empties my head enough to let me think clearly. I thought, while I ran, about 100 different versions of the same question. Did Myra change the locks because she was angry about something I had done? Did Myra change the locks because Idris Rafiq had been in the house and she did not want me to walk in on him? Did Myra change the locks because she had, without telling me, decided that the marriage was done and that she would rather build a new life inside the shape of our existing life than have the difficult conversation a person is supposed to have with their spouse before they make that kind of decision? I did not know the answer. I did not even know that those were 3 different questions. By mile 2 I had decided that the answer did not matter as much as the action that followed. After the run, I showered. I called my brother. He picked up on the second ring, which is what brothers do on a Saturday morning when they have been expecting you to call since Friday. I told him the situation in 5 sentences. He did not interrupt. When I finished, he asked only one question. Have you talked to a lawyer? I told him Gregory was already on the calendar for Monday at 9:30 a.m. He said, good. Then he said, do not go to the house alone. I asked him why. He said, because you are not the man you think you are right now. You are the man you think you were before. The two are not the same. I told him I understood. He told me he and Hala would come into the city on Sunday and meet me at the Waldorf. They would not come with me to the house. They would simply be in the city. The way people are in a city when someone they love is going through something that might get worse before it gets better. I called my father at noon. He answered on the 3rd ring. He was in his garden in Amman, pruning the roses he treats like children. I told him what had happened. He listened without responding. When I finished, he asked, has she hurt the little one? I told him I did not think so. He said, then the little one is your first priority. Everything else is a negotiation. Then he said, and do not let her make you the man you are not. I told him I would not. I spent Saturday afternoon walking through Millennium Park alone. I bought Hyraa a second stuffed animal at the water tower place, a small beluga whale that I knew she had not asked for but would not be able to put down. I bought a second copy of the Phantom Tollbooth because I decided that the first copy, if I ever got to give it to her, would be cleaner if it had not been carried through 3 airports. I called the office and told Diane I would see her Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. to walk her through everything before my Monday morning with Gregory. She said, I will be there. By Saturday evening, I still had not heard from Myra. I had not contacted her. I had not driven back to the house. I had not gone to her office. I had not spoken to Hyraa. I had, in 24 hours, gone from a man on a flight home with 2 stuffed lobsters and a children's book to a man standing in a hotel suite with a list of dollar amounts and a list of names and not one clear answer to the question of why the door of his own house had stopped working for him. Sunday morning, I broke the silence. I called Myra's cell phone at 8:14 a.m. It rang 4 times. She picked up. Her voice was controlled in a way I recognized from years of hearing her handle difficult clients. She was not startled. She was not surprised. She was prepared. "Where are you?" I asked. "I'm at home," she said. "Where are you?" "I flew back Friday." I tried the door. The code didn't work. A pause. The kind of pause that is not searching for words but is choosing between several you have already prepared. "I changed the locks," she said. "I should have told you." "I'm sorry I didn't." "When were you going to tell me?" "This weekend." "After I figured out how." "Figured out how to tell me you changed the locks on our house?" "Or figured out how to tell me something else?" Another pause. Longer. "Why don't you come over and we can talk in person?" she said. "I would like to." "Are Hyraa and Omar in the house?" "Omar left yesterday. Hyraa is upstairs with Aisha." I am the kind of man who, when given the option to come to his own house and talk to his wife about why she changed his locks, will instead arrange to do it in a way that gives him the upper hand. I told her I would come at noon. I told her I wanted Hyraa in the room when we talked. She told me Hyraa was 6 and didn't need to be in adult conversations. I told her that my daughter was going to be present when her parents discussed the future of the house she slept in every night. She did not argue. Kareem and Hala arrived at the Waldorf at 11 a.m. Hala brought me a small container of labna and olive oil that she had made that morning because she understood, in the way only a sister-in-law can, that I had not been eating. Kareem wore a navy suit on a Sunday because he always wears a suit on Sundays because he is the kind of man who has worn a suit every day of his adult life and long ago stopped making it a special occasion. We sat in the suite. I told them everything. Hala asked me if I had eaten. I told her yes, which was a lie. She gave me the labna and a piece of pita and watched me eat it before she would let me continue. Kareem asked me what I planned to say to Myra. I told him the truth. I told him I did not know yet. "You will," he said. "When you see her face you will know. That's what happens in rooms like this. The script waits for you in the room." I drove to Lake Forest alone. I arrived at 11:58 a.m. The house looked the same from the outside. The trees had lost most of their leaves by then and the lawn guy had not come, which was unusual because the lawn guy came every Wednesday and it was now Sunday. Small things. The kind of small things that, once you are looking for them, tell you everything about whether someone has decided to stay or whether someone has decided to stop staying. I rang the bell. Myra opened the door. She was wearing white. Cream, really, a sweater I had not seen before. Her hair was pulled back. She looked, at 38, the way she had looked at 25 when I had first met her at the aquarium, with the focus of someone preparing to make a statement. She had, I realized later, dressed to be photographed. I did not yet know that. Hyraa ran down the stairs at the sound of my voice. She called out, "Papa," in the specific pitch she used when she had been waiting. I knelt down. I held her. She smelled like the lavender shampoo Myra orders in bulk from a small supplier in Marseille. She told me she had missed me. She told me she had gotten a star chart at school and had earned 3 gold stars for her reading. She told me the beluga whale she had seen at the aquarium with her class had smiled at her. I listened. I let her talk for 90 seconds without saying anything back. Then I asked her if she would sit with me and her mama at the kitchen table because Aisha was making lunch and we were going to have a grown-up talk, but she was welcome to stay. She said yes, excitedly, because grown-up talks at the kitchen table meant juice boxes, and juice boxes at the kitchen table were the most exciting thing in her life. We sat at the kitchen table. Myra across from me. Hyraa between us. Aisha, who had been with us for 4 years, was in the kitchen making grilled cheese and cutting apples into the shapes Hyraa liked. I let Hyraa eat first. I asked her questions about school, about her friends, about the unicorn that lived on her bed. She answered each one in detail. Then she finished her apples and asked Aisha if she could go upstairs and play. I told her yes. She climbed down from her chair. She gave me an unsolicited hug. She went. Then there were 2 of us at the table. Tell me, I said. Myra did not start with the affair. She started with the locks. I needed space, she said. I needed to think. You were in Boston and I needed to make a decision and I couldn't make it with you coming back on Friday and me still uncertain about whether I was making the right decision. So I changed the locks. So I could sit with it. So I could figure out how to tell you. What did you need to figure out how to tell me? Another pause. Then she said the words the way people say words when they have rehearsed them so many times that they have lost their meaning. I want a separation, Ryan. I think I've been unhappy for longer than I've admitted. I know this isn't the way to tell you. I know that. But I also know that if I had told you 6 months ago, you would have tried to fix it. You always try to fix things. And I think this can't be fixed. I sat with it. I let the silence sit between us the way my father had taught me to let silence sit between me and anyone I was facing down. The silence does work. The silence tells the other person that you are not panicking, that you are not going to interrupt their narrative with a rebuttal, that you are going to allow them to feel the full weight of what they have just said before you respond. How long, I said. How long what? How long have you been unhappy? Months. Years. What? Almost a year, she said. In a serious way. Is there someone else? She hesitated. The hesitation was not the kind that comes from being asked a question you need to think about. It was the kind that comes from being asked a question you had already made a decision about whether to answer. There's someone I have been seeing, she said. His name is Idris. It's been a few months. A few months. I let the period at the end of that sentence sit in the room long enough for both of us to notice it. Yes, she said. In our house. Not in our house. We have been careful about that. Careful. Careful that you wouldn't find out by accident. That was the moment I understood that the life we had built for a decade was not the life I thought we had been building. I did not raise my voice. I did not throw the chair. I did not say the things that I will not write down here but that I said out loud, alone, in the car, on the way back to the city that afternoon. I sat with the information. I let myself feel the full weight of the fact that my wife had been having an affair in the margins of a life I had paid for in full and that she was telling me about it now, on a Sunday at the kitchen table, while my daughter was upstairs talking to her unicorn about a beluga whale that smiled at her. What do you want from me? I said. Specifically. Not what you want from your life. What do you want from me today? I want you to agree to a 6-month separation. I want you to stay with Kareem or in the city. I want Hyraa to stay here because her life is here. School, Aisha, her room. I want us to figure out a parenting arrangement that is gentle. And the house. I want to stay in the house. I looked at her for a long time. The kitchen was warm. The midday light was coming through the bay window in clean November angles. The fridge was humming in the specific way it had always hummed. Hyraa was upstairs laughing about something. Aisha was making a second grilled cheese. I am not going to agree to a separation today, I said. Ryan. I am not going to agree to anything today. I need to talk to my attorney. I need to talk to my brother. I need to think. What I am going to do is stay at Kareem's this week. I am going to see Hyraa twice this week. Wednesday and Saturday. I am going to come here, into this house I bought, with the doors unlocked, and I am going to spend time with my daughter. That is what I am going to do this week. We are not going to discuss the rest of our lives at this kitchen table today. Myra looked at me the way she had looked at me 10 years earlier when I had told her that I was not going to take her to the Hamptons for our anniversary weekend because the timing was wrong for a deal I was closing and I needed her to understand that my career and my marriage were the same thing. You seem very calm, she said. I am calm, I said. What would you like me to be? Devastated. I will be devastated, Myra. But not here. Not in front of her. Not at this table. I stood up. I walked to the stairs. I called up to Hyraa. She came running. I held her again. I told her I had to go back to the city for a few days. She asked me why. I told her Papa had some work to do and that I would be back on Wednesday. She asked if I was bringing her a stuffed lobster. I told her I had 2 at the hotel. She held up 2 fingers. I kissed her head. I left. I drove back to the Waldorf. I called Kareem on the way. I told him, without preamble, that Myra was having an affair and that I had decided to take Hyraa to the aquarium on Wednesday because I was not letting her childhood become a casualty of a decision that had been made by 2 adults at a kitchen table. He was quiet for a long time. What do you want me to do? He said. Tell me I am not crazy. You are not crazy. What else do you want me to do? I want you to meet me at the house on Wednesday at noon. I am taking Hyraa to the shed. I want you to drive a second car so that when I bring her back I do not have to walk into the house alone. I want Hala to be in the car with you. Done. And I want you to bring your attorney. Not Gregory. The guy you used when the subcontractor took you to court in 2018. Ahmad Alwan. Bring him. Done. I got to the Waldorf at 3:30 p.m. I called Gregory Lasker, my attorney, on his personal cell on a Sunday. He picked up on the 3rd ring. He had been watching football. He listened to me for 15 minutes. When I was finished, he said, I will be in my office Monday at 9. Do not contact her between now and then. Do not contact him. Do not post. Do not forward. Do not send a screenshot to anyone. Do not write anything down in text or email that could be quoted back to you in a deposition. Do you understand? I understand. Sleep. Eat. We will build this correctly. The way it needs to be built. I slept that night for the first time in 2 nights. I dreamed of nothing. I woke up at 4:42 a.m. I lay in the dark and I made a list. Not a list of grievances. A list of priorities. Hyraa first. Hyraa's stability first. Hyraa's school first. Hyraa's room first. Hyraa's routine first. Hyraa's relationship with both her parents first. The work. The firm. The portfolio. My father's health. My mother's phone calls. The house, which would become a financial object rather than a home the moment the lawyers engaged with it. The Range Rover. The nannies. The foundation her mother had named after her. All of those objects would have to be treated as objects. None of them would have to be treated as sacred. At 9 a.m. Monday morning I sat in Gregory's wood-paneled office on the 46th floor of the same building that houses Northbridge. He had a pot of Arabic coffee on the table behind his chair because he is, despite being a third-generation Chicagoan, an Arab-American attorney who understands the cultural weight of offering coffee to a man before you take his money. I sat down. He poured 2 cups. He did not ask me anything. He waited for me to begin. When I was finished telling him, he opened a yellow legal pad and wrote down 4 things. The date of our marriage. The date of Hyraa's birth. The approximate value of the marital estate, which he estimated at $19 million. The names Myra had given me. Then he closed the pad. "You are not going to like what I am about to say," he said. "Tell me anyway. You are in the strongest possible legal position. You are the income. You are the asset. You are the custodial parent. Myra is going to be made whole financially. The house is going to be sold. The foundation is going to be re-examined. There is going to be a forensic accountant in this story within 6 months because I will insist on it. And if, in the course of that examination, the foundation's books have any irregularities, we will use those irregularities to renegotiate the settlement in your favor. You will get primary custody of Hyraa because you can offer her a continuity her mother cannot. That is not cruelty. That is the reality of a custody case involving 2 parents, one of whom has just demonstrated, by changing the locks on the family home without notice, that she is willing to destabilize a 6-year-old's life to make a transition easier for herself. Gregory. Yes. What do I want? You want what every father in your position wants. You want to keep your daughter in the middle of a tornado that she did not cause. You want to keep her from being the heir to a conflict between 2 adults who promised each other forever. You want to not be the man who turned this into a custody war. So the question I am asking you is not what you can do. The question I am asking is what you want to do. Because those are usually different. I sat with that. I let the Arabic coffee cool in my hand. I thought about it. I want primary custody, I said. I want Hyraa in my apartment in the city on the weeks I am here. I want her in a stable school environment. I want her to see her mother on a regular schedule that we agree to together, in writing, in a way that does not change for 2 years. I want Myra to be financially comfortable but not in a position to use the foundation as a lifestyle fund while Idris Rafiq is in her life. And I want to walk into the door of her school whenever I want, pick her up at 2:30 any afternoon I am in town, and never again be the man standing outside a house that won't open for him. Gregory nodded slowly. Then we do it quietly, he said. We do it correctly. We do it without a single Instagram caption. We do it without a single news outlet. We do it without a single friend of Myra's being told before Hyraa's teacher is told. We do it in a way that, 2 years from now, Hyraa can look back at this and see that her father did not turn her childhood into a war zone. I agreed. By Wednesday at noon I was standing at the door of the Lake Forest house for the second time in 5 days. This time the code worked. Kareem and Hala were parked around the block in Hala's Volvo. Ahmad Alwan was with them. Ahmad had been told, by Kareem and me the night before, only that his presence might be required at some point in the next 12 hours. He had brought his briefcase. He had been an attorney for 31 years. He understood that the briefcase sometimes mattered more than the words in it. Myra let me in. Hyraa came running down the stairs again. This time she was wearing the beluga whale shirt I had bought her on our last trip to the aquarium, 4 months earlier. She had not packed it away. She had been wearing it the day I left for Boston, when I had kissed her at the security line, and she had worn it again, on a Wednesday in November, when she heard my car pull up. I did not mention the shirt. We went to the shed. Kareem drove behind us. Hala sat in the back seat of his car with my daughter's car seat installed, in case Hyraa got tired and wanted to switch cars for the ride home. Ahmad sat in the passenger seat and read the newspaper. He is a man who understands that presence is sometimes just presence. Hyraa held my hand through the entire aquarium. She pointed at the beluga whales she had been telling me about for 3 weeks. She ran from one tank to the next. She talked to the sea otters as if they could hear her. We ate lunch in the cafeteria. She ordered chicken tenders and apple slices and asked the cashier if the beluga whales had lunch too. I told her they did. She told me she would save them some apple slices. I told her the aquarium probably already had apple slices for the whales. She looked at me suspiciously and asked how I was so sure. I told her I was just guessing. She decided that was acceptable. When we got home, Hala was waiting at the front door in case Myra and I needed to step into the house together to talk. I asked Myra if we could talk to the kitchen again. She said yes. Hyraa went upstairs with Aisha. I gave Myra the fish I had bought at the aquarium gift shop, a small clownfish in a plastic bag that she could put in the kitchen window. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she put it on the counter. "Ryan," she said. "Yes. I want you to know that I never wanted Hyraa to think that you had abandoned us." I looked at her. "What did you tell her?" I said. A pause that I felt in my shoulders. I told her that Papa had to go away for a while. That he had work. That she would see you on the weekends. That you would always love her. What did you tell her about why Papa went away? Nothing. Nothing. I didn't want to confuse her. That isn't what I asked. A long pause. I told her that Papa wasn't coming back for a while. I didn't say forever. I said for a while. For a while. Ryan. You told my 6-year-old daughter that her father was not coming back for a while. While you had been seeing another man for months. While you had changed the locks on the house. While you had, in the span of 10 days, decided to dismantle the life that I have spent a decade building with you and her. Mira. Do not interrupt me. I had not raised my voice. I had not intended to raise my voice. But the sentence I had just said, and the look on her face when she heard it, were both loud enough. You told my daughter, the most important person in my life, that I was leaving. Not because I was leaving. Because you wanted to start telling her a story you could finish before I came home. You wanted to control the narrative. You wanted her first memory of this to be the version of it where you are the abandoned wife and I am the father who walked away. That is what you did. She did not respond. I am not going to walk away from my daughter, I said. I am going to see her every week. I am going to take her to school and pick her up from school on the days I am in town. I am going to the aquarium and the park and the bookstore and her bedroom at 7:30 to read her a story. And I am going to be a father to her in a way that you will not be able to edit, curate, or restrict. Because she is my daughter and I am not going to be turned into the man who left her. She did not respond. I am going to file for primary custody on Monday, I said. My attorney has been working on it since Saturday. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification. We can do this in a way that helps Hyraa, or we can do it in a way that hurts everyone. The choice, from this morning forward, is yours. I walked upstairs. I knocked on Hyraa's door. She called out, "Come in." She was sitting on her bed with her unicorn. The beluga whale shirt was still on. I sat down next to her. "Papa." "Yes, baby." "Are you coming back tomorrow?" "I am coming back on Saturday." "And next Wednesday?" "Next Wednesday and the Wednesday after that and the Wednesday after that. For as long as you want me to, I am coming back on Wednesdays. And on Saturdays." She considered this. Then she nodded, with the gravity of a 6-year-old who is being told something important and who has decided to believe it. "Okay, Papa. Bring more lobsters." "I will bring more lobsters. As many as you want." "Hold up 3, she said, holding up 3 fingers. I held up 3 fingers. I kissed her head. I left. Downstairs, Myra was standing at the kitchen island with both of her hands on the marble. I could see in the set of her shoulders that she had understood what I had said. I walked past her. I walked out the front door. I did not slam it. I did not turn around. Kareem was standing by the car. He had been watching the house. He did not ask me what had happened inside. He could see it in my face. He opened the back door of the Volvo for me. I sat down. Hala handed me a bottle of water from the cup holder. Ahmad was still reading the newspaper. We drove back to the city in near total silence. On the way I texted my father in Amman. Hyraa is okay. We have a path. I am not the man I was last week. I am the man I was on Wednesday. He texted back 14 seconds later. You are the man you have always been. You are just now being seen properly. God bless you and your daughter. Your mother and I are proud. The next 9 days were very specific work. Gregory and Ahmad coordinated in a way I had only seen them coordinate on commercial matters. They moved with the restraint of surgeons. They filed on Monday. They served Myra on Wednesday. They initiated a custody petition and a financial discovery request on Thursday. They arranged for a forensic accounting review of the Noor Foundation that, based on preliminary review of the filing data Gregory had pulled from Myra's own organization website, suggested that $117,000 in donor-restricted funds had been used for general operating expenses during the previous fiscal year. Not a criminal amount. Not an indictment. But enough of a calculation that, when presented in a deposition under oath, would require Myra to either account for the money or amend her prior filings. Lawyers use words like discovery and deposition because the words are quieter than the truth they are pointing at. I did not talk to Myra directly during those 9 days. I did not text. I did not call. I did not write a letter. I did not post on social media. I did not tell my friends, beyond Kareem and Diane and my parents, what was happening. I did not let anyone from the foundation's board approach me. I did not let anyone from Myra's family approach me. I told Hala to be the only point of contact for the women in Myra's life who might call, and I told her to be polite and brief and to say only that I loved Myra and that I wanted Hyra's life to remain stable and that the lawyers would handle the rest. I went to work. I ran the firm. I sat in the office overlooking the river and I approved lease amendments and I reviewed the Boston deal documents and I answered emails from junior partners who had no idea that anything was happening inside my personal life. I took phone calls in the small conference room with the door closed. I went out to lunch with clients who had no idea that my wife had told my daughter I was leaving. I performed normalcy in the way a man who has spent his life performing normalcy for a living learns to perform it. I did not perform it because I wanted to hide what was happening from the world. I performed it because normalcy, in a crisis, is the only thing that keeps the rest of the structure standing. If I had fallen apart at my desk, the firm would have started to fracture. If the firm started to fracture, my income would have started to fracture. If my income started to fracture, my ability to fully fund Hyra's life would have started to fracture. So I did not fall apart. I sat at my desk. I typed emails. I took meetings. I went home to the Waldorf at night. I will tell you that some nights, in the suite, I sat on the edge of the bed and I let myself feel it. I let myself feel the loss of the version of my wife that I had met at the aquarium in 2014 and that I had, in my mind, married. I let myself feel the loss of the version of my marriage that I had imagined on the bench at North Avenue Beach when she had said yes twice. I let myself feel the loss of the small rituals, the Sunday pancakes, the lavender shampoo, the bedtime stories, the Thursday night dinners in the kitchen that I had looked forward to every week. I let myself feel all of it. I let myself feel it for 10 minutes at a time, on the edge of the bed, in the dark, with the lake just visible to the east. And then I stopped. Because I had made a decision. The decision was to not let my grief become the architecture of my next decade. The decision was to let my grief be a room in the house I was building, not the foundation. Midway through that second week, Idris Rafiq reached out to me. He sent a message on LinkedIn, of all places, the place where men in finance pretend to network and where they sometimes send very dumb messages pretending to be professional. The message read, in full. Ryan, I have been meaning to reach out. I think we should talk. The current situation is unnecessarily difficult for everyone. I think we can find a path forward that is more humane for Hyraa. I am open to a conversation. Idris. I read the message twice. I took a screenshot. I forwarded it, exactly as it was, to Gregory and to Ahmad. I did not respond to Idris. I did not engage. The two attorneys agreed that the message would become part of the record in the discovery process because it documented, in Idris's own professional voice, his awareness that his presence in Myra's life had produced a specific consequence for her 6-year-old daughter. The words humane for Hyraa became, in the depositions that followed, a useful exhibit. On the morning of November 9th at 7:14 a.m., I was standing outside the Lake Forest house for the third time. The code worked. The door opened. I had, in my bag, 3 stuffed lobsters and a copy of the Phantom Tollbooth. I was carrying them because I had promised my daughter. I was carrying them because my father had taught me that the most important move in any game is the move you make after you have already lost a piece, and the move I was about to make was to walk into the house I had bought, with the door unlocked, to take my daughter to breakfast, with a copy of a children's book in my hand, on a Saturday that I had promised her the previous Wednesday. I did not knock at 7:14 a.m. I had, several days earlier, switched tactics. I had agreed to send Myra a calendar invite through a scheduling app that we had used during the marriage. The calendar invite read, Hyraa, Saturday, November 9th, 7:30 a.m. to 7 p.m., Papa. She had accepted the invite at 11:42 p.m. Friday night without comment. The acceptance was a contractual act. The day belonged to me. I had agreed on Saturday morning that I would not knock. I would ring the bell. I would let Myra open the door. I would be polite. I would say good morning. I would pick up Hyraa. I would not stay for breakfast. I would take her somewhere for breakfast. I would bring her back at 7 p.m. with 3 stuffed lobsters and the book and the small beluga whale from the aquarium gift shop. I would then leave. I would not ask about her school. I would not ask about her week. I would not ask about the foundation. I would not ask about Idris. I would do this every other weekend. The lawyers would work out the rest. But the line in the title of this story, I knocked on the door the next morning, is not about the door at 7:14 a.m. on a Saturday in November. It is about what happened on the Sunday after that Saturday, on a morning that Myra had not been told about, when I arrived at the house at 8 a.m. With the code working and the door unlocked, with a small suitcase in the back of the car that I had packed for Hyraa the night before, and with Gregory's written approval in my pocket for a temporary custody order that a Lake County judge had signed the previous Friday at 4 p.m. That order allowed me to take Hyraa for an extended weekend, beginning Sunday morning and ending Monday evening, with provisions for Myra's phone and video access. The order had been agreed to, 3 days earlier, in a mediated session attended by both attorneys and by both parents. But the week between the calendar invite and that Sunday morning contained, in its details, the small acts of generosity that separated what I was doing from what Myra had done. I had, on Saturday afternoon after dropping Hyraa back, texted Myra through the scheduling app. I had included in the text a single line. Thank you for accepting the schedule. Hyraa mentioned 3 times that her stuffed unicorn had talked about the beluga whale shirt all week. She also asked me, on the drive home, why Mama had said Papa was not coming back for a while. I told her that Mama had made a mistake, and that Papa was not going anywhere. I told her that you and Papa were working on some grown-up things and that grown-ups sometimes say the wrong thing first and then fix it. She told me that grown-ups say the wrong thing sometimes and that she would tell her unicorn the truth when she got home. I thought you should know that she is doing well, and that I am not going to turn her into a witness for either side of our disagreement. I would like to ask, in writing, that you not say anything else to her about Papa not coming back, or about Mama and Papa separating, until our attorneys have agreed on how we are going to tell her together. If you agree, please confirm by reply text. Ryan. She confirmed by reply text 14 minutes later. The next morning, Sunday, November 10th, I drove to the house at 7:58 a.m. The door was unlocked when I arrived. Myra opened it at the second knock, the knock at 8 a.m., the knock that I had practiced the way my father had taught me to practice the moves that come after you have already lost a piece. She was wearing a navy sweater and jeans. She had not done her hair. She looked, for the first time in the 11 years I had known her, like she had not slept. I did not comment on her appearance. I did not say good morning with an inflection that communicated anything other than good morning. Hyraa came running downstairs. She had not yet brushed her teeth. She was wearing pajamas with stars on them that I had bought her on the trip to Cambridge in October. She was carrying the stuffed unicorn. She hugged my legs. Papa. Hello, baby. Are you ready for an adventure? Where are we going? Somewhere with pancakes. With grapes. With grapes, and with strawberries, and with the whipped cream you like. She looked at Myra. Myra nodded. She said, have fun with Papa. She said it cleanly. She said it without an inflection that suggested anything other than a mother telling her daughter to have fun on a weekend. I thanked her. I told her I would have Hyraa back at 6:30 p.m. on Monday. She said okay. I took Hyraa to a diner in Highland Park that has the high chairs my daughter likes. She ordered the silver dollar pancakes. She ate 4 of them. She ate 6 strawberries. She told me she had read 11 pages of the Phantom Tollbooth on her own that week and that her unicorn had helped her with the words she did not know. I told her I was proud of her. She asked me if I had finished my pancakes. I told her I had. She looked at me with the focused expression of an old soul and said, Papa, you can have my last strawberry. You look tired. I am not going to tell you what that strawberry did to me in the middle of a diner in Highland Park on a Sunday morning in November. I am not going to tell you because the telling of it would make her the witness to my grief, and I have made the decision that she will not be a witness to either side of what her mother and I are working through. She will be a child. She will be a daughter. She will be a person whose parents disagreed and whose parents chose, even in disagreement, to keep her out of the middle of it. We went to the bookstore. We went to the park. We went to the aquarium again, briefly, because she wanted to tell the beluga whale about her unicorn. The whale did not appear to respond, but she insisted that it had nodded. We went back to the city. We had dinner at the apartment above the office that I had quietly released during the previous week. We read 2 chapters of the Phantom Tollbooth before bed. I asked her how she liked it. She told me she liked the part about the weather. I told her I did too. She fell asleep on the 2nd chapter, mid-sentence, with the book propped against the stuffed unicorn. I closed the book. I kissed her head. I sat in the doorway of her bedroom for a long time. The apartment overlooked Wabash. The streetlights were coming on across the river. At 6:28 p.m. on Monday evening, I drove Hyraa back to the Lake Forest house. Myra was in the doorway when we arrived. Hyraa ran past her to show her the 3 stuffed lobsters. She showed her the book. She showed her the 2nd batch of apple slices she had insisted on saving for the beluga whale even though she did not get to see one on Sunday. Myra knelt down and held her. I watched from the door. When Hyraa went inside with Aisha, Myra and I stood in the doorway for a moment. The November wind was moving the trees. The lawn guy was at the house. A small thing. A small thing that told me the lawn guy was back, which told me Myra had decided to live in the house as if the house was still a place where someone was paying attention to the kind of details that say someone lives there. I want to thank you for yesterday, Myra said. The text. The way you handled Hyraa. The way you came and went. It was clean. It was clean, I said. It can stay clean if we keep it clean. What do you mean? I mean that the next 4 months of our lives will look like this. I will have Hyraa every Wednesday evening to Monday morning. You will have her the rest of the time. We will not speak to her about each other unless a counselor is in the room. We will not use her as a courier for our feelings. We will not ask her to keep secrets. We will not change her school. We will not let Idris Rafiq near her without us both being present. We will not allow anyone in our lives to use her as leverage. We will work on a parenting plan with the mediator that we have agreed to. We will not file motions in court if we do not have to. We will treat each other the way 2 people who love the same child should treat each other, even after they have stopped loving each other. She nodded slowly. I agree to that, she said. Good. I turned to leave. Then I stopped. Myra. Yes. Do not tell Hyraa again that Papa is not coming back. Not even for a while. Not even as a story to make the transition easier. Do not say it. I won't. Hyraa is 6 years old. She does not have the context to understand a sentence like that. You and I have the context to know that what you said was a small thing. To her, it was the most important sentence anyone had said to her since she learned what a sentence was. Don't say that sentence again. She nodded. Ryan. Yes. I am sorry. I know. I believe you. I drove home to the city. I parked the car in the underground lot of my building. I walked across the lobby. I took the elevator to the apartment. I sat down at the kitchen table. I drank a glass of water. I called my father. It went well, I said. I am proud of you, he said. I am tired. Good. Tired is what happens when you do the right thing. Sleep. Eat. Be ready for Wednesday. I hung up. I sat in the apartment. The river was visible through the window. The streetlights were out. The city was quiet in the way cities are quiet at 8 p.m. On a Monday in November. In the weeks that followed, I did not become the man who turned his divorce into a war. I became the man who turned his divorce into a slow, careful reordering of the two halves of a life that had been, until that Sunday morning in Lake Forest, joined together at a cost I had not understood I was paying. I sold the Range Rover. I closed Myra's agency account. I moved my files out of the home office. I retained my attorneys. I did not post. I did not talk to the press. I did not write the kind of social media caption that would have made Idris Rafiq look, in the eyes of our shared professional community, like the man who had done what the worst version of him would have done if given the chance. I did none of that. The custody mediation concluded in March. The parenting plan we agreed to gave me primary physical custody with Hyraa living with me during the school week and with Myra during alternate weekends. The financial settlement was clean. Myra retained the foundation. The foundation underwent a quiet governance restructuring that I had advocated for in mediation. The house was sold. The proceeds were divided in a way that allowed both of us to maintain the kind of life Hyraa had been accustomed to without either of us being penalized for the difference between our incomes. Idris Rafiq moved out of the picture within 4 months. I do not know whether Myra ended it or whether the lawyers made it inconvenient enough that he ended it himself. I do not need to know. The custody plan does not depend on his presence. Myra has since, by all accounts, focused her attention on Hyraa and on the foundation. The beluga whale shirt still makes occasional appearances at dinner. The stuffed unicorn is on Hyraa's bed every night. The stuffed lobsters are arranged, in a row, on the windowsill of her bedroom in the apartment above my office on Wabash. The phantom tollbooth sits on a small bookshelf next to her bed, marked at the chapter she was on when she fell asleep on Sunday night. There is a folded corner on page 87, the page where she fell asleep. I will leave that corner unfolded until she decides to unfold it. There is a version of this story, like every version of a story like this, where I am the villain. A wealthy man with lawyers and money and a calendar invite, working the system to take a child from a mother who tried to leave a marriage that was making her unhappy. I can see that version. I can draw the lines that would support it. I can pick out the lines of mine that would look, in the absence of context, like a man punishing a woman for having the courage to leave. But here is what I know. I did not change the locks. I did not move my daughter's things out. I did not post on social media before my partner had even been told we were done. I did not tell my 6-year-old, in advance, that her mother was not coming back, in order to make my own transition easier. I did not build a foundation with her name on it and then use it as a lifestyle fund for my new partner. I did not invite a man I had been seeing for months into my daughter's school events without her father being informed. I did not do any of those things. I did none of them. What I did, instead, was the harder thing. I took myself out of the emotional part of the story. I let my attorneys do the talking. I let my brother do the driving. I let my sister-in-law do the cooking. I let my father do the praying. And I let my own life do the building. I built the firm. I built the apartment. I built the schedule. I built the routine. I built the bedtime story. I built the pancakes. I built the Saturday mornings. I built the chapter at the diner in Highland Park where my daughter offered me her last strawberry because I looked tired. That was the chapter. The rest of the book is the book. And there is one more thing I want to say about this, because I think it matters. When I knocked on that door on the morning of November 10th, I was not the same man who had shown up to the door on November 7th with 2 stuffed lobsters and an open code. The first man had assumed the world was working the way he had agreed with another adult to let it work. That man had gone on a business trip. That man had bought a book for his daughter. That man had not knocked because the door had always been open. The second man knocked. The second man had read his wife's silence for 10 days. The second man had read Idris Rafiq's LinkedIn message. The second man had eaten a stranger's labna in a hotel suite on a Sunday because he had not been eating. The second man had made a list of dollar amounts that, until that morning, he had not put next to a list of names. The second man carried, in his bag, both the phantom toll booth and a temporary custody order approved by a judge in Lake County. The second man, 3 weeks before, had been the same man. 3 weeks later, he was not. I am not going to sit here and tell you that any of this felt good. It did not feel good. The way a bone does not feel good when you break it and the way a bone does not feel good when it heals. Both of those things are loud. Both of those things are wrong. Both of those things are the truth of what it means to be a person whose life is no longer the life they thought they had built. What I am going to tell you is what I learned from this. 2 things. The first thing is that you should never assume that the door will be open. Not the front door of your house, not the back door of your marriage, not the metaphorical door of any relationship that you have been promised will simply maintain its state because you have agreed to maintain yours. Doors close. People change them. People change the codes. People change the locks. And the man who arrives at the door on a Sunday morning to find that his code does not work has to decide, in that moment, who he is going to be. He has to decide whether he is going to bang on the door until it breaks or whether he is going to take himself home and build a new door of his own in a house where the code is the one he set. I chose the second door. I chose to build a new house. I chose to build it for Hyraa. I chose to build it quietly. I chose to build it with 3 stuffed lobsters and a children's book and a pancake in a diner with the woman who would one day grow up to be the person who tells this story to her own children, in her own voice, in her own way, with the kind of confidence that comes from being raised by 2 parents who, even after they stopped raising her together, still raised her. The second thing is that a child is not a piece in a custody negotiation. A child is not a financial instrument. A child is not a leverage point. A child is a small person who is being raised by 2 adults who have made a promise to her, and who, even when they break the promise to each other, are not allowed to break the promise to her. Myra broke that promise when she told Hyraa that Papa was not coming back. I picked it up off the floor. I picked it up, and I put it back together piece by piece, and I carried it to the door of the apartment above my office on Wabash on a Monday morning in November and I set it down in front of my daughter so that she could read it when she was old enough. That is the door. That is the second door. That is the door I built for her. And that is the door I knock on, every other Wednesday, every other Saturday, every Monday morning, every pancake Sunday, every book at bedtime, every strawberry offered to the man her father has become, every chapter she falls asleep on, every corner she folds in the book, every time she calls my name from the bottom of the stairs, every car ride to the aquarium where the belugas nod at her, Every late afternoon when the lawn guy comes and Myra opens the door and Hyraa runs past her with 3 stuffed lobsters under her arm and 1 book and 1 unicorn and 1 belief, still intact, that her papa was always coming back. Because he was. He was always coming back. He just wanted her to know that he had to knock first. If this story hit you, leave a comment below telling me about a moment when someone in your life tried to close a door on you and what you did about it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is the kind of channel that tells the stories people don't tell at dinner parties. We're just getting started. Take care of yourselves out there, and don't let anyone make you the man you're not.